Okay, Mary Ann, good to see you again.
Good to see
Here
you.
we are. This is Mindful Eating and Mindful Life, and we like to drill down and like they did in The Sound of Music, let's start at the beginning because that's what we should do. And so, why do we eat? So start us off. What are a lot of the reasons that people eat besides the fact that they're hungry? We all get that. We all totally understand. I hope that everyone in their lives has had a chance to be truly, truly hungry, but I know there's some folks out there that have not, that have never experienced that. If you haven't, you should try it. I would just launch that out there for everyone. But why do people eat? What have you found in your travels?
Well, we talked about this in one of our former conversations, but I will say that what awakened me to this, first of all, I wrote this book as a result of having taught these classes for 2 years or more, and people were asking me for a book. So most of the examples in the book, all of them actually, came from the classes that I taught. These are real life examples. Mm-hmm. And the very first class that I taught, I was astonished because I asked that question of the group, and there were 20 or 30 people in that class. And I asked them, so other than when you're hungry, which, by the way, there was only one person in the entire group who had ever experienced hunger. Why do you eat? I was astonished. I had those old-fashioned white pages.
I still use them.
Yeah.
Still use them.
Well, I went through one, had to turn it over and go to the second one. There were so many reasons for why people ate.
Sure.
And so then I started to circle and try to sort out, what goes with what. And the majority of the reasons had something to do with emotions, but I will tell you, it was all over the map. Mm-hmm. So not everybody is drawn to food for the same reasons. Many people were just bored and nothing better to do, so they kind of wander into the kitchen, open the refrigerator or the pantry, and unfortunately what they have stocked in there is, go-to fat. And so other people ate because they were exhausted. So an example I'll share with you that I love this example because this woman was so smart and so dedicated. She was a grade school teacher, young lady, and she admitted to me, she saw me for private sessions as well as going through the classes, and she admitted to me that to her shame, remorse, she had in her closet everything from a size 6 to a size 14, and she sort of waffled from one end of the closet to the other because she would successfully diet and then get off and rebound.
Don't we see that so often?
It is so common. This is why it's a great example.
It is a great example.
And her story was very innocent. She loved to cook, and she was not really a true emotional eater so much as she was just exhausted. She would get home, wander into the kitchen, have a glass of wine, look in the refrigerator, sit down and rest for a bit, look in the refrigerator again. And by the time she figured out what to cook, she'd had 2 or 3 glasses of wine, and she said, to heck with it, and she ended up eating a bag of chips or just noshing on something that was not particularly healthy. So we worked out a plan, and it was a simple addressing her particular issue. She had acquired an old school desk, which she put by the front door as she walked in from the garage, and she had some spiritual books in there, some inspirational books. Mm-hmm. And she literally would trip over the thing when she came in. So she would sit down, pick up a book, and read a paragraph or two, pause, go into the kitchen. And the other part of it is she decided on the weekends what she would cook, and she had the stuff ready. Go into the kitchen, take stuff out, start the meal, then pour a glass of wine. By the time she was done with the first glass of wine, the meal was ready. It was like magic.
Game changer.
It was a complete game changer.
Nice.
Changed her life.
Right.
So that's one. And the other big reason, as we mentioned earlier, is mindlessness, meaning we multitask and we eat when we aren't even noticing. I mean, we have wasted so many wonderful, delicious calories just because we're eating it when we're doing something else, watching a show or doing email or being on the smartphone scrolling, and there's a whole bag of something missing, and nobody else. The cat didn't eat it.
Well, I think it's about making calories precious, and I know one of the strategies, and that's an important word. I use that a lot in my work, in my coaching, is you have to have a strategy, because if you don't, you're willy-nilly. throwing it into the wind. And strategies change everything, at least for me, and for what we bring into the house is important. That's something to talk about is how do you have a strategy for what comes in so that your opportunities are limited or are set up when you're in a different mindset to where, you don't go to the grocery store hungry, my wife says all the time, right? And so that what you have there is the things that you need and not bad opportunities. It's like shopping in the grocery store. You're supposed to shop not in the perimeters,
No, in the perimeters first.
Perimeters first.
Yes,
and
that's where the produce is.
And then you move into the center where the bad stuff is.
And I love that idea of strategies, Gordon, and my focus and the thing that I like to zero in on is where do you trip? What is your particular nuance of an issue that makes you, like the example I shared and the whiteboard that had 35 or more different reasons. And then you can make a strategy that's appropriate for you. So the whole equation is important. And many people don't really know why they overeat or why they eat when they don't need to. They haven't really stopped to pay attention. So a really great strategy to figure that out is to pay attention for a week or 3 days if you can't handle a week. Notice every single thing you eat. Notice what happened before that, if you needed that or not. And another older woman shared with me that she had had some trauma in her history, and it had gotten to the point that she would go into the kitchen and she couldn't stand to sit down at the table, so she would eat while at the counter. And she didn't have a healthy style of what she was eating. So that took a whole nother kind of reformatting to get her into a situation where meals were precious.
Right.
And something to be savored and not rushed through to get it over with. So sometimes people actually need a little therapy. That's all right.
Well, I think one of the things that I love about my wife, and she's like me, we're both very mindful about what we eat. She writes everything down.
Oh.
Everything. And if it's worth eating, it better be worth writing down, So she's formed her own strategy, and she learned that that's not her strategy. She picked it up from somewhere else, but I've watched her do it, and so I said, well, I'm going to try to do that. You know how hard that is? It's really, it's not simple. No. It takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And there's another word that I use a lot in today's society, and that's discipline. We are not, as Americans in general, we are not very disciplined when it comes to eating, when it comes to much of anything, really. There's a very much a lack of discipline, and I don't think it's intergenerational. I like to think kids these days, maybe, but I think it's been across the board. I think we've always had a hard time with that, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on how that relates to food.
Yes, well, I do have thoughts about that, and I see discipline and gentle nourishment as two wings of a bird. And the reason I say that is what started me in this whole process is long time ago. I went through a messy divorce. I had been disciplined prior to that. I tell you, I knew the calorie count of every single thing, and I knew what I ate. I was always a size 6 or 4, and it was a non-issue. I suddenly couldn't do it. I would find myself in the kitchen with half of the lemon meringue pie gone.
Right. Yeah.
And I actually was soaking in the tub, and it crossed my mind that actually what I needed was nourishment. And that I was going through such a hard time that more discipline was feeling like punishment. And so it's a different kind of discipline maybe, to notice what we need nourishment in. It's a much gentler approach, and amazingly with no effort in terms of trying to lose weight. I went from the one moo-moo that I was allowing myself to wear, I refused to buy one more thing, back down to my wardrobe, which fortunately I had not gotten rid of. And so again, it boils down to finding out what is true for this person. Where are they tripping? And I do agree with you that discipline often is lacking, and there's a sense of really mindless surfing a lot. And, you can go numb and not even notice, and lose your capacity apparently to make choices, to unhinge and do something different. And something has to break that cycle. And sometimes to start on healthy eating, you actually have to choose discipline around something else. Like, I will today set a timer and do no more than 1 hour maximum of social media. Click. And then I will go for a walk.
Right.
And that shifts the gears in the brain so that at some point you aren't mindlessly just eating whatever your zombie brain has made you eat.
Right. And I think we're that way with things other than food too. With what you
And they all mix.
You mentioned social media, but the underlier of it all is it all boils together.
Yes.
It all has underlying meaning to
Yes.
to where it comes to.
Yes.
You know, it comes around full circle. Well, I think we started from the beginning, and that's what we set out to do. So thank you, Mary Ann. I think that's an awesome beginning.